Okay, so we just did an example where we found the standard deviation. This is exactly the same stuff, only we're just going to write down the steps. Okay. This is about finding variance. So the variance, denoted by sigma squared, remember this is called sigma, is the average of the squared differences from the mean, which we already found. When a data set has a low standard deviation, values will be clustered near the measures of central tendency, whereas high standard deviations indicate data that are spread out from the center. Which makes sense, because if you have a low standard deviation, that means a lot of your data is clustered around the mean, which would make sense. If they're spread out, then they're not near the mean, they're just all over the place. So here's how you can find variance and standard deviation. So step number 1, find the mean. And we already know how to find the mean. X bar. We add up all the data points and divide by how many there are. Okay. The second step is, we've already done this in the video before this, so this should make what we did before like solidify it a little bit so that you can understand what we just did. And if you need to, you can refer back to these steps. So step number 2, find the difference between the mean and each data value, each data value, and square it. So that's this part where we did the x minus x bar squared. Okay, so find the difference between the mean and each data value and square it. Okay. To find so this third part is find the variance we call that sigma squared by adding the squares of all the differences. You're gonna have to write small. Of all the differences from the mean and dividing by the number of values. Okay, so find the variance by adding the squares of all the differences from the mean and dividing by the number of values. That's this part that we did. Okay, where we add them all up and divide by how many there are. That's the variance. So the standard deviation is the square root of the variance. So to find the standard deviation, remember that's called sigma, which makes sense. If sigma squared is the variance, then the square root of that is the standard deviation. By taking the square root of the variance. So variance and standard deviation are directly related. The higher the variance, the higher the standard deviation, because if I take the square root of a really high number, it's going to give me a high number. Okay, so if you have a very low variance, then you know that your standard deviation is going to be very small as well. So those are all the steps to finding variance and standard deviation. I would take these home and study them before your test. You will not get a copy of this on your test, but we will put this formula on your formula sheet, so that should help jog your memory a little bit. Okay, so since we just wrote all these down, we're going to do an example using what we just did, even though we just did it before. What color did I use? I used blue. Let's use pink this time. Using these data points right here. Okay. Find the variance and standard deviation for the receipts of a month of grocery visits. So they gave us all the data points. So first thing we need to do, find the mean. Okay. So we're going to find the mean by adding up all of our data points. 23.42 plus 79.83 plus 12.79 plus 165.37 plus plus 141.28 plus 52.11 for a grand total of 583.03. 583.03 divided by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So our mean is 83.29. Okay, so that's our mean. So we did step number 1. Now we're going to do step number 2. Find the difference between the mean and each data value and square it. So difference, square. So we're going to take this, subtract the mean from it. So 123.42 minus 83.29, 40.13. Okay, so we're going to do that over and over and over again. So 79.83 minus 83.29, negative 346. It's okay to have negative numbers, remember? Because we're going to end up squaring it anyway. 1279 minus 8329, negative 7050. Or we could do 70.5, that's okay. 165.37 minus 83.29, 82.08. Okay. 823 minus 83.29, negative 75.06. 141.28 minus 83.29, 57.99, and 52.11 minus 83.29, negative 31.18. So those are all the differences. Yay! So now what we're going to do, step number 3, or no, we're still on step number 2, we're going to square them. We're going to plug each one into our calculator and square it. So 40.13 squared. 1610, we'll go 2 decimal places since we're dealing with money. So 42, so 1610.42. Okay, so negative 3.46 squared, 11.97. Okay, negative 70.5 squared. Okay, this one is 4970.25. Okay. 82.08 squared. 6737.13. Okay. Negative 75.06 squared. 5634. 0.00. 57.99 squared. 333.62.84. I know this is super exciting. And then negative 31.18 squared. 972.19. Okay, we found all of the squares. Yay, we did it. Step number 3. Find the variance, sigma squared, by adding the squares of all the differences from the mean and dividing by the number of values. So we're going to add all these up to give us a total. Okay, another exciting part. So 1610.42 plus 1197 plus 4970.25 plus 6737.13 plus 5634.00 plus 3362.84 plus 972.19. Grand total is 21,978.8. So that is almost our variance. We need to divide that by how many there are, divided by 7. So our variance is 3114.11. Okay, so 3,114.11. That's our variance, so let's write that over here. Sigma squared is 3114.11. Okay. Deviation, all we have to do is take the square root of that. So, square root of our answer 55.8. And that's it. Variance, standard deviation. We did it. Like I said, it takes a while, but it's really not that complicated. And we're going to do a couple, we'll do one example together in class, and then I'll show you how to find the z-score. Okay, so that's it. We're done. Yay.